Hey, Cal, I don't know about you. I know we're going to talk about this, but look, am I a bad person for actually having a bit of a giggle during the Big Bash auction? Because it just if I was putting myself up right now for, I'm premium, I'm platinum, damn it. No one wants me.
Oh, look, unfortunately, I don't reckon you would have been the only one cringing a little bit through some of that. I thought it's a really good spectacle. I think it's got potential long term, but you can't have, invited and pumped up in the media so many high class, world class performers. Encourage them to come and enter your auction and then have them go unsold like they did. I just feel like I hope they don't feel embarrassed by it because they shouldn't because of the way it was actually set up. There was always potential for availability to come into it and then potentially teams to overlook players that weren't available the whole time. So, it could have been done differently. I like it as a spectacle. I just don't. They just missed the mark, didn't they? Too many high-class players not coming to the BBL now.
I feel really bad. I felt bad for them. Anyway, we're going to get into that and a hell of a lot more. So let's get on with the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Timed Out. I'm joined by Callum Ferguson, as ever, to discuss what's been going on in the world of cricket. And look, let's start off with some pretty big news. Now, you and I have spoken about Tim David before.
Oh, yes.
We have a very, very nice young man, someone you know very well. And lo and behold, he has actually made it into the World Cup squad. Ricky Ponting had anointed him as a man who could win you a World Cup, which I know Tim David was really reluctant to talk about. And I think was kind of feeling that he wanted to just go away and let his batting do the talking because just the I guess, weight of expectation that being anointed by someone like Ricky Ponting might put on you. But he's made the World Cup squad, which is huge. So what do you make of his inclusion? I mean, it's huge. He doesn't have an Australian contract. He doesn't have a state contract. It's quite remarkable, really.
It is. I love it for the fact, or actually, there's too many facts to love it for, but one of them is the fact that we haven't been too narrow-minded or focused that we won't select someone who's not in our state system currently. He has been through our pathway system in different forms over the years, but the fact we've been willing to overlook what you would see as the norm and select this guy in the World Cup squad. He is a match winner, like Ricky Ponting said. You and I have talked about it at length over a long period of time now, nearly 12 months. He's a guy that had to be in that squad. I'm a little bit disappointed we haven't seen him in green and gold yet in some way, shape or form. I think it would have been good to try and get him a couple of games by now, but the fact that they've selected him, though, is a huge win, I think, because it gives Australia another weapon, another guy that can literally win the game off his own bat within the space of 2 or 3 overs. And they are rare, like Ricky said. He compared him to Roy Simons. Now, he's probably not the all-round threat, but what he is very good in the field on top of some devastating batting. We don't see guys with the sort of power Tim David brings to the table very often at all. Generally, in the last sort of 10, 15 years, we've seen them come from the West Indies. Well, he's very much in that mould, but I do actually feel like he's got the ability to bat a little bit higher in the order. I think we've mentioned that here before. So he's a long-term project for the Australian side, I believe, and they're getting him in now for this World Cup. I think it's a great decision.
Do you see him playing in the starting 11 for Australia's first match? Because I'm not sure if they will start with him. I kind of feel like they might start with a side that's very similar to what we saw at the end of the T20 World Cup. But what do you think? Do you think they might just throw him in there from the get-go?
Yeah, it's really hard to get a read at this point. Look, it is coming up quick, and I'm hopeful that they'll be able to get him some experience, whether it's in internal trials or a practice game here or there. I'd love to see him in that side. It'd be really interesting to see how they'd make way for him. He's he has taken Mitchell Swepson's spot in the squad, which is a big call to make, but understandable considering we're coming back to Australia. Spin won't play as big a part. We've got Glenn Maxwell, who will bowl overs and has done well in the past. So, look, it's not a huge surprise for mine that they've been willing to go one less spinner going into this World Cup. We are on home soil. If someone needs to get called in for an injury, it's not the end of the world. They don't have to fly half the world to get there. There's a few advantages that come with having a home tournament. That's probably one of them. I love that Tim David's in there. I'd love to see him play.
Yeah, same. I think it's incredibly exciting. And like you said, just to see someone come from outside the normal box as well is quite exciting. Now,
it is. Another reason, Mel, that's really exciting, I think, is because I feel like we've been a little bit, you've got to come through this way. We've got good control of these players. We know them inside out. There's a whole raft of reasons. It's almost a control thing that typically national administrations like to have. I feel like this is perhaps a step into the modern era. So I believe George Bailey and his team deserve a pat on the back for this one, because I'd be surprised if any other country that had access to Tim David wouldn't have picked him.
Yeah.
And it's great to see. But one country that may not have in the past was probably Australia. So I'm really pleased that we're coming into the modern era under the watchful eye of George Bailey.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely one to watch, and I think going to be very, very exciting, fascinating to see how he goes. Now, on the world of T20, let us turn our eyes to the Big Bash, League in Australia, and the draft. I was joking about it at the top of the show, but it did feel a bit embarrassing, did it not, to see so many platinum players. They've built them up. It's like they've used them in pre-draft sort of promotions to see the likes of Faf du Plessis and Andre Russell. So much hype, not getting picked. It seems to me, I don't know if you're going to agree with this, Cal, but so basically how I see this is that the teams themselves have just gone, this is the kind of team we want, and we're going to go with that. We don't give a damn about star power. And Cricket Australia are going, we want star power, we need star power, we want to market it. And the two things just went in like different directions.
Yeah, they really did. I think it'd be really disappointing for a lot of the staff in at Jollymont Street in Melbourne with Cricket Australia. I feel like, I was maybe a little bit, of the opinion that they must have had a good handle on who was going to get selected and at what spot, having communicated well with the teams leading into the draft that, we know these guys in particular are going to get picked up, so let's pump them up. Faf du Plessis will be the first player we announce that's entered the draft. We'll put a whole heap of promotion dollars into that fact, and we've got a host of others like Kyron Pollard and probably particularly Andre Russell, and they don't get picked up. I just don't understand how you can be that out of touch with what's actually going to take place when you're running the BBL like this. It's really disappointing for a lot of fans out there who want to see these guys play on our shores. But I'm quite disappointed for some of those players that were named as platinum players. You get your hopes up. You'd feel like, I'm a wanted player here. They clearly want me to be a part of all of this. You would get your hopes. I don't care how big a name you are or how successful you've been in the past. If something like that happens to you and then you don't get picked up, that's going to be a letdown, and you're going to feel a little bit off about the whole situation and the experience, which might just have the world's best in T20 cricket questioning whether to actually enter themselves in the draft next time, because once bitten, twice shy, right?
Absolutely. You sort of wonder, I don't think there's any question that those players who were directly affected, who put themselves up and weren't picked, absolutely no doubt that they would be feeling that way. Then you start to wonder, right, those players don't operate in isolation. They talk to other players, and other players see what happened. There's already so much
Yep.
competition from the UAE and the South African comp. Um, yeah. So then, how much does that have a knock-on effect of other players saying, well, we're not going to do it? And also, I guess the flip side of that is then you go, well, doesn't matter. Does the Big Bash, like, I know that I've spoken to coaches in the Big Bash this year who've sort of been like, well, you know what? We don't need to rely on that kind of stuff. We've done really well going with local talent and having like a bit of a narrow focus on what kind of skills we want and managing that. Um, so like we're okay.
Mm.
How does that work in which is the right approach? What do you think the Big Bash needs? Does it have to have those players? Is it a competition that can stand on its own right by having, the old platinum player, but mostly relying on local talent?
Oh, look, I firmly believe it needs a mix. I think you need your overseas players coming in. They definitely, if you get it right, have the ability to become household names within your own. Like Rashid Khan, for instance. I mean, he's a hero at Adelaide Oval amongst the Strikers fans, and he's a hero of a lot of fans of other teams as well. Alex Hales is a very much loved player at the Sydney Thunder. So he's someone who will get a great reception again. That's a great pickup for the Thunder. And look, I've got no doubt that the Stars fans would have loved to have seen Andre Russell again. They got a taste last year. He did perform quite well for the Stars without really having that 70 off 30. He had a lot of really bursting innings late in the game, which I liked. So look, I feel like you need the mix, but what we do need to understand, and I feel like Cricket Australia needed to probably have a better handle on, was teams have been building lists for a period of time. It's not like they just redo their list every year and they'll build a side around whichever big name players they pick up in this draft. They've got players already on multi-year deals that aren't going anywhere after they pick these players at the draft, and there's no players available really now to start to build around the drafted players right now. Everyone's signed up. So that it's a real hole that they found themselves in. At the end of the day, we need a few overseas players in each team. I'm not sure we need 9 like we're seeing in the UAE comp, but I think that 2, maybe 3. I'm pretty comfortable at 2 would be the right mix. And I've placed no blame whatsoever on the coaches and the staff at each team. The system is what it is, and you do absolutely everything possible to win in my eyes. And if you're not doing that, then you're letting your fans down. So I'm just really disappointed that we've left some of the great players of the T20 world perhaps a little forlorn and bemused by what's taken place. And I'd be surprised if any of those players are overly keen. They might need to be really enticed to come back next time.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it won't have gone unnoticed by a number of other big name players as well. Look, I'm still over in the UK, and we've got one test to go. Thank goodness, decider, which I'm very excited about. With England and South Africa, we've seen a massive swing from one side to the other as far as results go. I'm interested to see what you think now that we're coming to the decider, Cal, in two sides where you've got two excellent bowling attacks, and you've got two batting lineups on England's side, probably one that can absolutely fire and beat any team in the world when they do, can have vulnerabilities, and South Africa, who do have a vulnerable batting lineup, especially now that they've lost Rassie van der Dussen with that injury. So
Yeah.
head to the Oval. I don't think it's going to go 5 days, although it'll do it just to spite me now. But what have you made of this series so far?
It's been a roller coaster, and I've liked it. I think at the moment England are, whilst they've had an energised last 3 or 4 months, a second coming, so to speak, and Everyone's been enthralled by what Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes have come to the table with. We won't name it, will we? But we'll certainly talk about the brand. And it's an aggressive style where they come out and they take the game on with the bat. And they're just the steady, brilliant new ball attack that they've always been on home soil with Broad, Anderson, and then now some younger, more youthful legs coming in underneath. Robinson has certainly had an impact as well. Potts. So, the attack is steady. We know what they're coming to the table with. We know what Leach does. But it's the batting side of things in particular for England. And we're still in the feeling out process. Which way is it going to go? Is it sustainable? Who knows? But it's exciting. And I feel like, to be honest, I think England will be too good here. I thought they would have been all the way through the series, but certainly South Africa have made a play, particularly in that first test. It'll be really interesting to see what happens at the toss, I think, because I just get that feeling South Africa want to put the English batters under pressure and perhaps get them in early on day one to try and see if they can nibble a few out and make them a bit wobbly.
Yeah, it's funny because going and looking back, and I've written about this during the series as well. Yeah, you look at South Africa; they haven't lost a series under Dean Elgar since he came in as captain. They're top of the table in the World Test Championship, and a very good chance of possibly meeting Australia. They're coming to Australia later this year, and they could well meet Australia in the World Test Championship final next year. Probably South Africa, Australia, and India are the likely candidates. They've won series basically by having a really good bowling attack and having batters who have just done enough. In the past, I think now it's 12 tests. They've only had 4 players score centuries. John Bairstow has scored 4 this summer. That's right.
And how well is it going? Just quietly, I do feel like though. I mean, they won the toss and batted in that last test, South Africa. But I just wonder whether, regardless of what they see on that first morning, within reason, they wouldn't mind just having a dart at England with the ball and bowling first, and just seeing if they can make them a little bit wobbly like they did in the first test. Because what we do know is that the most favourable conditions for seamers is generally going to be the morning of day one. And they made them a little bit jumpy on that first morning of the test series, which might have sent a few shivers down the English fans' backs. But they bounced back well on that second test. But that was batting in the second innings for the first time. So I wonder whether, and I'd like to see it, if there was any hint of grass on the wicket, any tinge to it, see the South Africans put England in and see if they'll come out all guns blazing like they've said they will.
Okay, well, experience has told me, having gone to the Oval many times, 2 days out, it's going to look green as green can be, and everyone's going to get excited. And then they're going to shave it, and it's going to be dry. That's every time.
I'm hearing you.
And 2 days out, everyone's like, "Oh, green mamba, green mamba." And no, it's not going to be a green mamba every single time.
That's right.
It's been hot.
But I just don't feel like I just feel like this, like you just mentioned, they just don't make big scores. South Africa, are they going to be good enough? Because if it's really flat for the rest of the game, are they going to be good enough to make enough runs to trouble England? I don't know. I wonder whether it's the best way to go for them, just to try and, because they're going to swing hard, and if there's an opportunity for them to break through early, it's probably on that first morning. I wouldn't say if Australia were going there, bat, but this is a different side altogether.
Yeah, and I mean the interesting thing in the last test, basically the whole plan was blown when they lost the wickets. They went for an extra spinner in Simon Harmer. They chose to bat first, and then they had a collapse. So the whole point of having that plan just went out the window. So
that's right.
Yeah, no, and
it's quite such a great sport. You don't know what's coming, and it's just so good to watch,
isn't it? And I'm just going to also say though, how sad it is for me looking at the FTP when it comes to South Africa, and they've only got 2 in the next FTP, 2 3-test series, one against Australia, one against England. The rest are 2 Test series. So let us celebrate this decider because it's one of a very rare opportunity. I feel really sorry for Dean Elgar and the South African Test side. You know, devaluing Test cricket in a major.
Yeah, you wonder whether that's a concerted effort or decision made by the South African Cricket Board, that they're just not that interested in playing the longer format. I hope it's not, because South Africa have got a rich history in Test cricket over the last couple of decades. So I hope that we see them play more Test cricket than not. But it doesn't look good over the next few years, does it?
No, definitely not. So, yeah, enjoy this one while it lasts. And of course, while that's happening here in Australia, Australia have wrapped up the series against Zimbabwe, which probably was what was expected, Cal. But just wondering what you've made of the series so far.
Oh, look, I feel like it's been great to have Zimbabwe out here, but it doesn't surprise me that it's been so lopsided. There was a bit of a wobble from the Australians in the run chase in the first game, but I did feel like they were going particularly hard, the Australians. In the second game, it was, I wouldn't expect Australia to bowl a side out, an international side out, for less than 100. I would never expect that, but it's not a surprise that it's significantly less than 200. They should probably be doing that to the Zimbabwean side as it stands. It's a strong Australian side that really should be, poles apart from a side like Zimbabwe, who are rebuilding again. So look, it would have been nice for a bit more of a competitive contest, but it was also good to see Adam Zampa back in the game and taking wickets. So it was a good chance for him to get back out there. It would have been nice for Aaron Finch to make some runs. I do wonder whether, how he's feeling about things at the moment. It's not been a smooth ride for him the last 18 months. We know the quality of the player, so he's probably going to be searching high and wide for runs leading into this into this World Cup. So he's probably searching for a bit of confidence. Cameron Green, good to see him, in and amongst it as well. What did he take? 5 for 33. I mean, this guy just keeps coming on in leaps and bounds, and he looks exceptional with the ball in that innings. I'm not sure how much you saw, Mel, but bouncy, good pace. He just continues to thrive. So there'll be a couple of positives for the Australians, but let's hope for a better contest in this third one-day coming up. I hope that Zimbabwe come out with a bit of freedom and take it right up to the Aussies and give us a bit of a spectacle.
Yeah, no, I mean, Zimbabwe need the exposure too, don't they, to good quality sides. They're not going to get better. They have beaten Australia, I think, in the last tri-series that they played with South Africa, but they need that extra experience. With Aaron Finch too, it seems to be a thing. He struggles sometimes with his form going into tournaments, and then everything is kind of okay. We saw that happen a little bit during the T20 World Cup without him necessarily setting fire. And he's also he makes a lot of tactical decisions as captain that you have to give credit for Australia's success when it comes to bowling changes, fielding placements, all that sort of thing, and they're just the general leadership. I think he would like to lead Australia to the next World Cup in India, which is a year away, and I could see him. His ideal would be to see that out and then probably hang up the boots. Do you see that as happening? Do you think he's got enough in the bank so that even if he isn't quite getting the runs, he's kind of the right person to lead Australia through these next 2 World Cups, and then that might probably be it?
Yeah, look, I feel like he's got it in him to keep going. I think the biggest question for Aaron is how's the body feeling and how's he pulling up from games, and because it can wear you down if you've got some ailments. We know he's battled with his knee for a few years now, and he's not getting any younger. But what I would say is he's a naturally athletic guy, so his fade from an athletic standpoint won't be, I don't think, as pronounced as some. So I think he's got it in him, and his game has it in him, but it's just a matter of whether he's happy to keep, fighting the good fight, getting up for each game, keeping the body in good nick, and battling through all of that. Because with the captaincy on top, that's tough. That's tough. So certainly, I think he's got it in him. I wonder whether if they win this next World Cup, whether he might just go out on top. And it'd be great to see him go out on top because he deserves it. He's had a fantastic career. For mine, he's one of the best that Australia's ever had in one-day and T20 cricket. So he deserves to go out on top and on his own terms for mine.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see if he reassesses it, if Australia actually do go on to win a home World Cup. Bearing in mind, too, that, last year was supposed to happen in Australia, and that was supposed to be sort of his year. So one to watch. Cal, thanks for your thoughts, as always. It's great to talk to you and hear what you have to think. Thanks, everyone, for joining us at home. We really, really do appreciate you popping on to join in the conversation. So let us know what you think. And we will see you next week. There's so much cricket going on. There's Asia Cup as well, which we haven't had time to get into. Loads happening.
Yes.
Test series, everything's going on. So, look, whatever you're doing out there, I hope you enjoy your cricket, and we will see you soon.
See you guys.